Well, my brothers and sisters, the season of Advent is a season of waiting. But it is also a season of watching and listening in anticipation and in hope for something wonderful is about to come upon us. And our Advent waiting is not a stagnant or a passive kind of waiting either. But like Jesus tells us in his parable today, the Lord of the house has left home and placed us, his servants, in charge, each with our own work to do. And each one of us is reminded to stay alert and on the watch. Advent, then, is a time of work and preparation, a time of watching for and listening for the coming of the Lord of the house. But if we think that the coming of the Lord is only about some great catastrophic event that will suddenly appear in the sky someday at the end of time, then we're already missing it. And as we get older, we begin to realize that that earth-shattering event probably won't happen in our lifetime. And so we start to become distracted and discouraged with our watching and our waiting and our listening. And we begin to allow ourselves to become totally absorbed in all the more immediate and pressing concerns of everyday life. And we certainly have a lot of immediate and pressing concerns in our lives these days, don't we? Of course. But it's only human nature when that happens. So what I would like to do is I'd like to take another look at a deeper meaning of just what Jesus is talking about when he suggests that the Lord of the house may come unexpectedly and find us sleeping. What does he mean by that? So I'd like to start with this little story about what it means to be alert and to stay watchful. It's a cute little story, actually. It was high noon in Manhattan, New York City, and the streets were, as usual, buzzing with crowds, cars, taxis, horns blowing, brakes screeching, and sirens wailing. Two men were making their way through the crowd. One was a native New Yorker, and the other was a visiting farmer from Kansas. Suddenly, the farmer stopped in his tracks. "Hold on," he said. "I hear a cricket." His friend replied, "Are you kidding? Even if there were a cricket around here, which isn't very likely, you'd never be able to hear it over all this noise." Well, the farmer remained quiet for a little while, and then he walked several paces to the corner where a bush was growing in a large cement planter. He turned several leaves over, and he found the cricket. The city man was flabbergasted. "What great ears you have," he said. "No," the farmer replied. "It's all a matter of what you've been conditioned to look for. Look, I'll show you." With that, he pulled a handful of coins out of his pocket and let them drop to the sidewalk. As if on signal, every head on the block turned. "You see," said the farmer, "you hear what you want to hear. It's all a matter of what you're listening for." So, sisters and brothers, Jesus' message is for you and for me to remain alert and watchful for one thing and one thing only: the coming of the Lord of the house. And believe it or not, both you and I have already missed it. Not just once, but many times over. But how can that be? What does that mean in the first place? Well, remember what I said earlier. The coming of the Lord is much more than just about some great catastrophic event that'll suddenly appear in the sky at the end of time, catching us unaware. We must be ever watchful and alert, because there are many comings of the Lord of the house. In the morning, in the evening, at midnight, in the afternoon. You might say there's a cricket under every bush and under every leaf. What does that mean? Well, let me tell you another story. This is a personal story to illustrate this very important point. You remember the story that I told you a few weeks ago about how I woke up in the ICU at St. Luke's and had this amazing encounter with a man named Joseph, who was in a bed across from me and very bad off, and about how the Lord let me know how precious Joseph was to him, and how I had spent the night praying for this man, and how I come to realize that I had actually been kept in a coma for 5 days after my operation, just so I could be at just the right time, in just the right place, to be there for Joseph. And then if you'll remember how wonderful that experience was for me when I realized this. And if you'll remember, I prayed this prayer, Lord, if that's what all this was for, then I'd gladly do it again. Well, you know the old saying, be careful what you pray for. Well, the Lord took me up on that. And believe it or not, just a few days later, after I went home, I figured, hey, I'm out of the woods now. Now I need to be about the task of getting better, taking the meds and getting this heart attack thing behind me, But lo and behold, 6 weeks later, I developed fluid and an infection under the incision, right in the center of my chest. So I had to go back to surgery. Now, this surgery wasn't quite as drastic as the first one, but it was bad enough. And I woke up in that same recovery room at St. Luke's as I had been in before. And this time I was totally exhausted. It was terrible. And I just had to sleep. I had to get some sleep. And so I'd start to drift off a little bit, just like, oh, God. Beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop. What? Nurses would come running, and some alarm would go off in another bed in that hallway. I was like, okay. I go back, try to go back to sleep, and just start to drift off a little bit. Boop, boop, boop. Wake me up again. Nurses would go running. I'm like, oh, Lord, please, I got to get some rest. I can't take this. This is awful. This is terrible. All these nurses running around everywhere, and, got to help me, Lord. Why are you letting this happen to me? What's going on? And then that little voice come back again. It said, Jim, you hear those alarms going off? Every time one of those alarms goes off, somebody's in trouble. Somebody needs help. The nurses are running to give them help. You need to be praying for them. Oh, yeah, Lord, I need to pray for these people. They're in trouble. So I found myself listening. I'd lay there and listen. Beep, boop, beep, boop. Oh, somebody's in trouble. And I'd see the nurses go running. I'd start praying, Lord, help that person. Be there, help the nurse find out what it is, get their blood pressure fixed or whatever it is that they need, help them out. And first thing you know, I found myself laying there waiting for alarms to go off so I could pray for people. It was amazing, the transformation of such a terrible thing, such adversity and problems that it seemed like at first were actually disguised opportunities to be a blessing in disguise. Imagine that. And it wasn't but about 10 or 15 minutes after all that started, guess what? I drifted off fast asleep. I slept through it. It was amazing. And it comes from the peace that comes from within. You remember the little cricket in our story earlier? Well, do you know what the chirping of a cricket is really all about? That chirping sound is actually a mating call. Yeah, imagine that, a mating call. The cricket is singing a love song to its mate. It's singing to its lover. Come and join me in a communion that will bring great joy and new life into the world for everyone to enjoy. Well, God is like that little cricket. He really is. God is a lover singing out to us a love song. The Lord coming to us over and over again from the most unlikely places, out of adversity and trouble, and inviting us to a communion with God and with each other and with all of creation, actually, that will turn even our most unlikely circumstances into incredible and meaningful experiences in which we will find new life and lasting life, not just survival, but life. So be watchful, be alert. The Lord of the house is coming, even now, in all the circumstances of our lives. May he not come suddenly and find you or me sleeping. What I say to you, I say to all.